Governor, it's great to have you. Welcome to the show.
It's great to be here and a great crowd.
It is a great
Happy
crowd.
New Year,
Yes.
everyone. Great to see you.
I think they came to see you, Governor. I don't like to say. I think it wasn't us. I think it was you. But in any case.
That's her
I
opinion.
don't know
I don't know.
about
So, Governor, you've been governor for 3 weeks now, right?
Not even.
Not
Yes.
even, not even. I'm just wondering if things have changed, if you get the best tables at the restaurant or if you go to the registry, everyone steps aside so you can get up and pay your parking tickets or whatever you're doing.
It's been great. I am so grateful to people around the state, first off, for electing me, but also for the reception. And we've been out on the road the last, it's not even 3 weeks, but everywhere from Ludlow to Wilmington to the Berkshires, North Adam, Pittsfield, Dartmouth. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank
You're
you.
adjusting the microphone
Thank
here.
you.
Okay, I just say.
We heard everything.
You
It
heard
just was a
everything.
little
We
muted.
did.
Go ahead.
And I think people are really generally excited, optimistic, and also expectant. There's a lot of challenges out there, a lot of urgency, and we're just excited to have the opportunity, the privilege to work with people inside the administration, outside the administration, across this Commonwealth to move us forward. It's busy. I finally figured out, not only where the bathroom is, but some of the other offices in the State House. But obviously that's an adjustment, and it's a new team, and a new team we're building out. I'm really proud of our cabinet. I think we've got some really excellent people in as secretary, very, very exciting. And we're about the business now of sitting down and, assessing where things are within the various agencies and prioritizing what we need to do. And so I'm really thrilled about where we're at and the direction of things. It's certainly busy. It's certainly busy, but it should be busy given the nature of all we want to get done in the state.
The calls, the lines filled up quickly, so we'll just ask you on one topic, and then we'll get to the calls and the texts. We were joined yesterday by the president of the Mass Teachers Association. As you know, day 2 of a teacher strike in Woburn is today. There's a bill pending before the legislature which would legalize strikes by all public employees except public safety workers. Do you support it?
No, I'm not comfortable taking a position on that. I mean, I would say, and we talked to both the teachers union and the city yesterday. I was hoping that they would resolve this. I hope they will resolve this today because we really need to make sure that our kids are back in school. And, obviously I come from a family of educators. I support educators. We want to make sure that our educators are treated well and fairly. And we want to do the things that will incent more people into education, teachers, paraprofessionals, and the like. It's also really important, particularly with what we've seen kids experience through COVID. We've got to make sure that kids are in the classroom and everything. It's incumbent upon all of us to make sure that people really stay at the table, negotiate, get this done so that our young people can get back to school.
So just to be clear, you do not support a bill that would legalize the right to strike of most public safety workers?
At this time, I'm not taking a
Okay.
position on that.
No position. Rick in Cambridge, you are first on Boston Public Radio with the Governor of the Commonwealth, Maura Healey. Hi.
Hi, Governor Healy. I know you have a deep interest in the physical, emotional, and social well-being of our youth. And there's one thing that you can do that actually would be very easy to do that would significantly not only make our youth, our students, emotionally, socially, and physically healthier, but it would also prevent problems from coming. And that is to use your authority to get the Board of Education to release the draft of the new revised health education frameworks, which they have been sitting on for 4 years. And I know this because I was part of the group 4 years ago that made the revision. And we are now using a 24-year-old health education framework that is completely out of date. And teachers and principals and superintendents and curriculum coordinators don't have the resources that they need to facilitate.
Rick, we got it. I think let's hear what the governor has to say.
Well, first of all, Rick, thanks for calling in. And I know that my team's making a note of your comment right now. There are a lot of things you learn as you start a job like this. There are a lot of things that have been in the works or are in the works, and these are the very things that we're looking to uncover now and see what we can do about it. Certainly, Rick, I share your concern for kids' social, emotional well-being. Growing up, my mom was a school nurse and a health teacher, and I think what she was teaching and confronting at that time is very different from where we've evolved to today and what the needs of our students are. So we take that very seriously. I promise Secretary Tutwiler, who this Commonwealth will come to know and love as our new Secretary of Education, takes that very seriously as well, and thank you for flagging it.
Rick, thanks for the call. We appreciate it.
I believe we have a question from the audience on police reform.
Hello, Governor. My name is Mike. I'd like to know why, since union contracts require agreement on both sides, why not at the next bargaining session insist that police union contracts provide that arbitrators do not have the power to reinstate officers fired for misconduct, such as for killing Tyree?
Thanks, Mike, for your question. I'd have to look into what the specifics are about the rules or the policies that you're referring to there. I will say, Mike, as I've said for a long time now, it is absolutely critical that we have the assurance of people. The people have the assurance, and those who are there to protect and serve. We've done a lot of work in this state on this. A lot has been implemented, and as governor, I will continue to support the police reform efforts that have been underway, as well as the criminal justice reforms that have been underway. And with respect to Tyree Nichols, I think all of us are horrified by what happened. It was a betrayal of basic humanity. I was pleased to see how quickly law enforcement and the chief acted there and the prosecutor acted there. But I think it points to a greater issue of systemic racial profiling that exists in society. Certainly we've seen it in policing, but we can't deny that we see it across so many realms of society. And day in and day out, I think here in the Commonwealth, we need to commit to any and all efforts to address those systemic failings that have held people back for far too long. We need to do that for the sake of people across this country.
Mike, thank you for your question.
Mike is absolutely correct, though, that a lot of these issues go to arbitration. We talked with Bill Evans, or even before that, Commissioner Davis, about police officers in Boston who had been fired for misconduct or stealing money or too much violence or something, and they're reinstated through arbitration. Mayor Wu now is facing a situation where the Boston Police Patrolman wants to go into arbitration for their points. The arbitrators often favor the police officers in these situations. Meanwhile, we got the Worcesters under a Department of Justice. They're looking at what goes on up in Worcester with policing. And Springfield has that narcotic squad violence consent decree that is being looked at up there. And then, of course, in Cambridge, we found out, I didn't even know this, that Cambridge has lagged way behind. There's no police body cameras in Cambridge. And there was a young man, a student at UMass Boston, who seemed to be having a mental health issue and was shot by the cop. We still don't know who the police officer was that was involved with that, and the community is very upset. So we have a lot of problems right here with police transparency.
Well, I think you noted some of the things that are happening across cities around this state, and the challenges that cities are sometimes confronting when it comes to these issues. On a state level, I just remind folks that an important piece of legislation that was passed, the Police Reform Act of a few years ago, established a statewide commission that is about ensuring the proper licensing and decertification of police officers. And so that's an important body that we have in place. We caught up with some other states in establishing that. And as governor, I'll do everything I can to support the efforts of the newly created Post Commission.
Let's go to Karen in West Roxbury. You're on Boston Public Radio with the new governor of the Commonwealth. Hi, Karen.
Yes, good morning, Governor. Congratulations on your historic win.
Thanks, Karen.
I'm calling also with regard to criminal justice reform with two questions. One, I'm wondering if you're willing to commit to banning use of facial recognition software as part of and in support of piece of the police reform bill. And the other is I'm wondering if you will commit to not building a new women's prison and instead commit to creative, innovative decarceration policies.
Well, Karen, thanks for your question. I feel like I'm back in my old hat as Attorney General, which I am not, and I'm very excited to work with our new Attorney General, Andrea Campbell. My position on facial recognition remains the same. I think there is a place for it. I think that the guardrails around how facial recognition is deployed are important as well. But that has been my position on facial recognition. When it comes to the moratorium, it's a really important topic. I have tremendous empathy there. I would say this. I think that we need to be careful about not taking steps that would actually prevent us from rehabilitating and fixing existing conditions, whether it's at Framingham or elsewhere. I want to see people having access to the kinds of programming that is important to them and to their future, educational, rehabilitative, and the like. You've got so many people who are dealing with real issues of trauma, of mental health, of substance use disorder, and these things need to be provided. Also, somebody is entitled, while in state care and custody, to be kept in conditions that are habitable and safe and healthy. And so I would not want to take a position that would preclude the state from putting money into the immediate fixing up, so to speak, of existing physical plant. I certainly support the call for no more new construction with respect to sort of new buildings, new infrastructure. But that's the caveat I offer there, Karen.
Karen, thank you for the call. By the way, the new Attorney General, Andrea Campbell, will make her first visit for Ask the Attorney General on February 14th. Am I correct? February 14th.
Valentine's Day.
And the mayor will be with us
Not
at
a better way to
1:30.
spend
Hadn't thought
Valentine's
about
Day
that.
than with you, Jim.
You know, speaking of, you and nobody
sure
else
that's what
feels
she's
that way.
thinking.
Thank you. It's a
Yeah.
beautiful spirit. Governor, we have asked you about rent control about 3,000 times when you were Attorney General and a candidate. When we asked you the question in May, you said, I'm not sure it's the solution. Then when Mayor Wu finally put together a proposal about a week or two ago, you're not quoted in the Globe, but it says the governor is, quote, non-committal. We went back to what you said to us when I asked you a question in, I think it was August, asking you about how do you feel about local option rent control bills, which is exactly what Mayor Wu is filing. Here's what you said. Yeah, I support lifting the state ban on that. Absolutely. That's been my position, and you leave it to communities to sort it out and what's going to work in those communities. That sounds to me like you were in favor of local option rent control bills like the one, at least in spirit, being filed by the mayor. Is that correct?
I don't think my position has changed on this. I think from the beginning, my view has been, first of all, we've got a housing crisis. People can't afford rent. They can't afford to buy new homes. And this gets to whether or not people are going to be able to come here, stay here, or whether people are going to up and leave from here. So housing is a top priority. It's why I've created a Secretary of Housing. It's why we are big time focused on increasing housing production around the state. What I've also said is that I support the efforts of local communities to make decisions for themselves about what is going to work within their community. And so with every proposal, of course, the devil's always in the details. And this was just filed. I haven't seen it yet, but obviously my team will take a look at it as it first has to work its way through the city council. So my position remains that I support the efforts of local communities to make those decisions around housing, around rent stabilization in particular.
So you do support, again, the devil is in the details, but the concept is one that obviously you're comfortable with and support.
The concept is, yes, and also we need to make sure we look through the details, how those things work out, what the implications are, right? All of that.
You know, there are other parts of what Mayor
But
wants.
I also want to underscore the imperative of creating more housing around the state. And sometimes that's going to mean building new housing. Sometimes it's going to mean putting money into the rehabilitation of existing properties, the preservation of existing properties, dilapidated properties that we could fix up. I've also asked, day one, I think, on this job, I asked my Secretary of Administration and Finance to give me an inventory of all unused state property to see if we can convert some of that to housing. Because right now, people in this state, frankly, across regions and across an economic spectrum, are struggling with the high cost of housing. And this will go towards the competitiveness now and our future, this state. It's why we've made it such a priority.
You know, your predecessor, Charlie Baker, pushed for this 175 communities that have MBTA stations and trains and whatever going through their community, build affordable housing around those stations. Today's a deadline for them to come up with some plan. I think unless we've heard, they've missed the deadline to come up with a plan, and that's a big deal in terms of affordable housing. People get right on the T. So do they pay a penalty for missing the deadline, or do we give them another extension, or what?
Well, let's talk about that. First of all, that's a good plan. It's not the only plan out there, but I think the idea that you would incent more development, denser development around transit hubs makes a lot of sense. And when we say affordable, it's affordable across a range of income levels, okay? So I just want to, sometimes we use those words, but I want to be really clear with the public. I am not speaking exclusively of low-income housing. I am talking about housing for the middle class. And as well. That's really, really an important point right now. And that is one important thing that the Baker administration did. I think it was an excellent idea. We need to support that. I'll get details when I get back to the office today about who's filed what. We have seen a number of communities actually file their zoning plans, which they needed to under the law. But certainly this administration is going to look to do everything it can to incent, support, and drive up compliance with that particular program. But we need to do more. And that's why I talk about Secretary of Housing, whose responsibility it will be to drive housing production across the state. Rehabilitation, preservation, use of state-owned properties that are just sitting empty right now. Identifying how we can work with developers, with communities to grow housing starts around the state. We must do it. We have to do it. The Lieutenant Governor is very, very focused on this and will continue to be. But housing, because people need to be able to afford to live here. And right now, there are way too many people who are struggling with that. And I do not want to see people leave our great state. We live in the greatest state in the country, but it's not great if you can't afford to live here. And that's something that we have to have a real conversation about, an honest conversation about, and it will require collaboration, state, federal, local level. I'm pleased that last week the Lieutenant Governor and I filed a nearly $1 billion bond bill, $987 million. Important for housing, for economic development, for the kind of investments that we want to see happen across the state in infrastructure.
One last thing about this. One of the things that Mayor Wu has proposed to the legislature is that there's a tax on high-value real estate transfers as part of her package up to the legislature. Do you think that's a good idea?
I want to see more about that.
Okay.
I want to see more about that. Again, we are at a crisis point. I've talked about the housing crisis in this state, and I think that we need to be open to any and all solutions that will get us to the point where more people are able to afford to live here, to stay here, to grow families here, to grow businesses here, right? There's so much the state has going for it, but we're being held back by a few things. Housing, transportation, cost of childcare. These are things we need to deal with.
Let's go to Jasper. You're in Marlboro. Welcome to the show. Hi.
Hello. Hey, Maura Healy. I have a question for you.
Hi, Jasper.
So I wanted to ask in regards to trans health care. What's your plan on helping people being able to access it much easier? And I'm just trying to find the phrasing for it because, for example, I've had to travel to Boston for some of my health care. How are we going to facilitate it for all Massachusetts citizens?
Well, I appreciate your question, Jasper. As folks may know, I've been a longtime civil rights advocate. I've been very supportive of ensuring that members of the LGBTQ community have access to services equal to anyone else in this state, and that includes when it comes to access to needed health care, particularly for our transgender community. And so, it's about education. It's about incenting the providers, as you say, you suggest not everyone can get to Boston for care. So how do we make sure that care is getting spread out to communities around the state? It's something that I know my Secretary of Health and Human Services will look at as equity. Equity we read with a very broad lens. Equity across all realms is really important, and know that I will continue to be a champion when it comes to supporting the rights of the LGBTQ community.
Okay, so Carrie asked a question I think you should answer rather than Marjorie and me. Did all three of you coordinate your outfits today? You were all wearing a plum color. I think you
That's
should tell the
right.
truth, Governor. We did coordinate our outfits this morning. Is that not correct?
We are so karmically, psychically
That's right.
synced, Jim and
we just-
Marjorie.
Can we
It
do
just
some?
happens.
Exactly.
That's
I
what
said
she
to Marjorie,
says.
it's what's in the closet for
It's what's
me.
in the closet. It's
It's
excellent
what's
take.
clean and in the closet.
Absolutely. And you don't have to iron. Yeah.
Can we have a light moment here? Well, I don't know. Like you were there's a contest. Is that the right word?
Oh, yes.
About you and Lieutenant Governor, I guess, and this is a tradition. Well, explain this portrait thing and the extension of what you're doing with kids here. You explain it.
That's not a light moment.
So it is a light moment.
Your
actually.
sneakers are a light moment.
Thank you
For
very
those on
much.
it,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, honestly,
Thank you.
Can you
Okay.
believe he wears
Sorry I
those
brought that up.
sneakers
Okay,
in
fine.
public? I
Fine.
mean,
I'll
really.
show them to you in a few minutes.
They're like a Jackson Pollock meets
They are.
something. I don't
Thank
know.
you.
It's a
Appreciate
Nike
it.
running shoe that Jim's
Thank you.
sporting.
Yeah, it's a sad
Okay.
situation.
It doesn't match, by the way, anything that we're wearing.
Or anything that he's
Even though it
wearing
has
is what
50
she wanted to
different
say.
colors in it.
How about those portraits?
Yeah, well, that's not light. It's very serious.
Okay, good.
Okay, serious moment for civic engagement, particularly for engaging with young people around this state. By tradition, the governor and the lieutenant governor, with the start of any new administration, select a portrait of a former governor or lieutenant governor to hang in their offices. And so we showed up, we gave it some thought, and then we just decided that it would be well, we got a lot of decisions to make right now. We thought this decision would be really terrific for young people around the state to weigh in on. So we decided to hold a contest. It's open for another week or two, inviting young people from around the state to submit an essay recommending why a particular portrait should hang. So, you know, part of what we want to do is we want to bring young people into government. We want to bring young people into the State House. We want them to visit us. We want them to be engaged in government. And this was a way for them to learn a little bit about the history of Massachusetts and those who've served, and also put their stamp on whose portrait should hang so that they can have some investment in that process.
Where do
and
they
in that
submit
State
that? How do
House.
they do this? Where do they do this? Do you know?
You think I know?
I
don't
didn't
know.
think
Where
so,
do-
actually. We'll
somewhere.
ask your coworker in a minute. Do you,
Yeah.
you know the answer?
We'll make sure we get that.
Mass.gov, is that what you said? Well, you'll tell us in a minute.
Okay.
Hey,
Mass.gov
before you leave, what happened?
slash-
Slash
Governor.
governor.
Yeah.
What happens when they pick a governor for your office who you didn't like?
You
I'm
know,
serious about that. What do you do?
I've said for a long time I don't engage in hypotheticals. you know?
Okay, fine. We're talking to Maura Healey. She is the new governor of the Commonwealth. Mike in Burlington, you're next on Boston Public Radio with Maura Healey. Hi.
How you doing?
Great.
Hey, Mike.
I just have a quick question. Is you going to do anything to help the senior citizens with their home taxes? Maybe cap them?
Yeah, Mike. This is something I'm really sensitive to, as you may not know. During the campaign, I supported lowering taxes for seniors, addressing the circuit breaker. I also supported tax relief for progressive tax relief for a variety of folks when it came to renters, to lower income individuals. I also supported, for what it's worth, raising the limit for the estate tax from $1 to $2 million. So, you know, I have been a strong proponent of tax relief for people around the state. I continue to be. Mike, when it comes to our seniors, you know, seniors are a group that's hit really hard right now. It is really, really tough, I know, to afford groceries, to afford gas, to afford a mortgage, to afford insurance, to afford rent, to afford electricity and heating, though we talked to the utilities recently, and they have told us that people should start to see their rates go down, their bills go down for heat and electricity starting February 1st. But, Mike, that continues to be my position. We've got to do everything we can to support our seniors.
You know, staying on, Mike, thank you for your call. Staying on taxes for a minute. You said, I think during the campaign, that Governor Baker's tax package was something like really sensible. Those were some of the elements you mentioned a minute ago. When you gave your first speech in front of a business group, I think it was Associated Industries the other day, you said you hadn't settled on the details yet. Are those things that you just mentioned baked into whatever your proposal is? And when are we going to see this tax cut proposal you talked a lot about?
I think those are all good ideas. I think those are all good elements. I think there are other elements to consider. I'm not ready to announce yet what our position is going to be with respect to tax relief. That's something that is the subject of ongoing discussion right now. Important this week, we were able to get a number for what's called the consensus revenue, just identifying how much money we expect to have to be able to have budgeted. And, you know, I'm really pleased that we were able to do that working with the Senate, working with the House and our office, we were collectively able to decide on that important consensus revenue figure. So that's a good start, a good starting place. but we have more work to do in discussion over the next few days, next few weeks, really, when it comes to thinking about what a tax relief package might look
Will
like.
that be in the
proposal.
budget, your submission? When does that, I don't know, when does that happen?
Well, the budget gets submitted March 1st, and so we're leaving that open as to whether it will be in the budget or whether it will appear elsewhere. Again, this is a subject of ongoing discussion with legislative leadership. Recognizing, I think we all recognize that families are hurting and affordability is a key issue for our state.
But it is very likely, the estate tax change that you talked about, some relief for renters, it is very likely that a package will include something on those fronts. Is that a fair statement?
Well, I can tell you what I've been interested in and focused on. I can also tell you that so much of this originates with the House, so it is a collective process, and that's why our discussions between and among legislative leadership is so important, remains so important. We're engaged in that, and I think nothing should be off the table when it comes to collectively making decisions that are in the best interest of folks around the state.
You're listening to Governor Maura Healey. We're broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library, and we have at the Boston Public Library mic, our homie mic here. Paul has a question for the governor.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Marjorie.
Hey, Paul.
And Governor, may I have your permission to call you Governor Maura?
Sure.
What is she going to say? No?
I like that. I get called a lot of things, I'm
bet.
sure, so that sounds very
Wait,
nice.
just give it time.
You-
Okay.
You inherited a housing problem along with an affordability problem. And so many people are saying we need more housing. But what I'm trying to say is we don't need more housing. We need more housing that's green and truly sustainable. And I'm going on the description of sustainability as being our ability to meet our current needs without compromising the needs of future generations. So as a scientist, I'm really...
Hey, Paul, I want to be respectful. We need a question. There are a lot of people who want to talk
would you
the
like to
governor.
comment on green housing as opposed to any old housing? And thank you, Jim. And thank you, Governor.
Well, thank you, and thank you, Paul, for raising the question. I am really committed to this area. It's why first up, these aren't mutually exclusive. We can do both. We can build more housing, and we can build more sustainable housing, and we can use our housing production to help, us get where we need to be in terms of our climate goals. I'm the first governor in the country to appoint a cabinet-level climate chief. I did that because it's so important, because you need somebody who's going to sit atop and work with all of our agencies, our housing agency, our economic development agency, our transportation agency, our education agency, to make sure that those agencies are operating with a lens around climate and doing everything that they can to address issues of sustainability, resilience, and the like. When it comes to building, the new starts for housing, it's really exciting because you can think about ways to build them in a way that are green, that will actually be much better for our environment, that will reduce unhealthy pollution, and will also save people money, right? And you know far more about this, Paul, as a scientist that you are. But I firmly stand in the camp that these things are not mutually exclusive prerogatives, and we can and must achieve both. And that's why I have set up the administration the way I've set it up, so that we're having that direct engagement and conversation and that lens across all of our agencies. And it's also, why I'm going to make sure that we as a state are chasing and maximizing every single federal dollar that can come our way for investments that are going to help us when it comes to climate and infrastructure and transportation and the like. That's the attitude. That's where we need to be here in Massachusetts.
We're talking to Governor Maura Healey. She's with us till the top of the hour. We're broadcasting from the Boston Public Library. Boston Mayor Michelle Wu is going to be here taking our questions and yours from 1:30 to 2. You are listening to Boston...
2:30.
2:30, excuse me.
Yep.
1:30 to 2:30, extra half hour today. Very exciting. Anyway, we are broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library, and we are streaming on youtube.com/GBH News.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. I'm Jim Browdy. She is Marjorie Egan. We're live at the Boston Public Library with Governor Maura Healey for the first of monthly Ask the Governors. We are thrilled she's here. She'll be with us till a couple of minutes after 1 o'clock. You can stream this and see her at youtube.com/GBH News. You can call or text her at 877-301-8970. Or if you're here, you can go see Brendan or Annie or one of our coworkers over there and do a question kind of thing. By the way, the portrait essay thing for kids, what's the age limit on this deal? You don't know that either?
No, I do know. It's
What
up
is
through
it?
high school.
Oh, okay. You're a little nervous
Through
there for a
12th grade.
second. Mass.gov/GOV portrait essay. That's the place to submit your thing till February 10th. That I'm right about. Yes? Till
Yeah.
February.
Unless we have to move it. We'd like to get a portrait
Got
hung
it.
sooner rather than
Okay.
later.
Fair enough.
So Governor Healy, lots of people are texting about the MBTA. You know, I mean, every day there's another story. We had people having to walk through the dark tunnel on the Green Line by Copley. We learned that the MBTA is still waiting on more than 300 new red and orange line trains. This is just all this month. Green Line derailed a couple of days ago. The MBTA is not making the progress in hiring bus operators. Goes on and on and on. So where are we in trying to, or where are you, I should say, in dealing with and the other thing is, they've been criticized for the lack of transparency. Just the other day, they did not give a straight answer to Shirley Young from the Globe when she asked about homeless people sleeping in South Station. They said they weren't being thrown out of the South Station, and in fact, Shirley went down there and they were. So the secrecy and dysfunction continues.
You know, when I ran for this job, and as I take this job, I know that transportation is at the top of mind for so many people, as it should be. And I know we've got a real challenge on our hands. And I am always going to be honest and direct and transparent with the public about the state of play. And we have a lot of work to do. I'm meeting with my secretary later today, my new Secretary of Transportation. And, you know, I think a few things. One, we have prioritized, this started weeks ago, we prioritized the hiring of the absolute best general manager for the T that we can find. We're trying to move through that process as expeditiously, but as thoroughly as possible. Number two, we're prioritizing the hiring of a transportation safety chief. We've never had that before. And we are going to have that here so that we can have assurance that every rail and track and bus is inspected. The public deserves to know that they are using a system that is safe and reliable. And by the way, we're not going to incent people out of their cars, which is something as a climate governor I want to do, until and unless we have a system that is safe and reliable. Number three, we're getting to the bottom of those issues that you identified. When it comes to Springfield, it turns out there's this company in China that had a contract to build fabricate trains out in Springfield. It turns out that there are real delays in terms of what's happening out there, part of it due to some manufacturing and technical issues with the capabilities of the plant. We're now going to assemble a team to figure that out and to work to make that right as quickly as possible, because we need to have those red and orange line trains delivered as a matter of public safety. When it comes to transparency generally, look, I am a huge proponent of making sure that we are upfront and honest with the public about what is happening. And I'm going to be honest with you. You know, right now we've got a few things going on that are troubling. We've got a workforce issue. There are a lot of good people, great people at the MBTA working incredibly hard. There aren't enough of them. We're down 900 slots right now at the MBTA. We need to fill those slots as a matter of safety and as a matter of operation. So we're prioritizing the operation function. And, you know, as I say, I may not always make decisions or judgments that people will agree with. That's not something I can, that's something I can promise. I understand that. But I am going to endeavor, and this team will endeavor, to make decisions with the best information and with transparency to the public. I read that article the other day, and I picked up the phone. I called Jim O'Connell, and I asked Jim O'Connell what he thought about that. I also found out that it turns out the T owns that building, is responsible for the building, the South Station. They retain a private security company, and we've gone back now and we've talked to the private security company, and you saw the garbage bags are off. They're not locking the doors that way, and I'm going to be clear that if we face extreme weather, we're going to allow people to stay there overnight. it's a matter of basic humanity, in my view.
And Jim O'Connell, Healthcare for the Homeless, is subject of a new Tracy Kidder book.
They're
which
going
is
to both
great.
be here.
They're both
I don't know
gonna
what
be
the
here.
date
Yep.
is, but Tracy Kidder and Jim O'Connell. The 15th. Two quick transportation things, then we'll get back to the calls. One of the other things on the mayor's agenda before the legislature is a seat for Boston on the board of the T. Do you support that?
I do.
You do. And one other question. We discussed with your predecessor about 100 times congestion pricing, and with all due respect to Governor Baker, I had no idea at all why he was not willing to do a pilot, and I said it to him, so I'm not talking behind his back. Do you support at least something on the congestion pricing front in terms of roads and what time people drive and that sort of thing?
Yeah, I support a real look at this, whether it's a pilot or something else. I know that Jim Rooney at the Chamber of Commerce just recently raised that, and I've had a lot of discussions with him about it. But again, if we want to get people out of cars and we want people to come back into the city, they need to have a reason to do that, and they need to have a transportation system, a transit system that works.
Fair enough. Let's go to Cindy in Merrimack. You're on with the governor of the Commonwealth. More, you want to read whatever that is?
Well,
before?
just
Cindy,
very
can you hold
quickly,
1 second,
We
please?
just got a text from someone, Governor, that wants to know how the hell you spin that ball on your finger, the basketball. Can you
It's
do
a lot
it for minutes at a time?
Yeah, I don't know. I was bored. As a little kid. I started as a little kid, and it just gave me something to focus on.
Okay.
By the way,
Cindy from
I
Merrimack.
never knew it would be of interest later in life.
Cindy
John
Merrimack.
Abbott, by the way, our former boss,
Oh.
Susan Goldberg is here somewhere, our current boss. John Abbott just emailed to ask what the text number was. How pathetic is that? 877. He used to be the head of GBH till
I
3
feel
weeks
John's
ago.
pain. See, you asking me these questions? What's my...
That's right.
Yeah.
877-301-8970, John Abbott. Let's go to Cindy in Merrimack. Hey.
Hi. Good afternoon, Governor Healy.
Hi, Cindy.
I'm concerned thank you. I'm concerned about the condition of the Department of Developmental Services, their provider network, and I see two main challenges. The one being that salaries have never really supported the hiring and retention of staff, and we need staff who have, a skill set, to manage, to work with people who have behavioral and or medical issues. I'm not sure the general public kind of understands the skill level required. The other concern I have is that where these services have been so chronically underfunded that, and it's been certainly exacerbated by COVID and the general labor shortage, that the expectation of quality have devolved. And I'm concerned about this becoming normalized within that culture. It's understandable, but I'm hoping that salaries can, for beginners, increase. And I know that there's a bill in front of the legislature now to support an increase in salaries to bring it up to about $20 an hour level, which, brings it up from about, under 17, which would be a start. And so I guess my question is, would you support that? And do you have other thoughts about how we can pull this system out of crisis? Thanks.
Well, thank you for the question, Cindy. And this is a really, really important issue. We don't have the workforce that we need to support human services work across the state. And this is profoundly important work. Work with individuals who are some of the most vulnerable among us. And for the workforce, that creates extra challenges. And we need to figure out a way that we can get more people into the workforce. Right now, we see that, during COVID, there's certain day programs that still haven't reopened because they don't have workforce. And I hear story after story from people who are workers in places and also from family members who are just heartbroken and devastated that their loved ones aren't getting the services that they need. So I think, Cindy, you really put your finger on something that is a really important issue. It's something that our new Secretary of Health and Human Services, Kate Walsh, is going to be looking at. With respect to pay, we can't expect people to do these jobs where there are additional challenges if they're not going to be compensated. And so, we have a consensus number. I've got to talk to the budget team about what's possible. But it is about what you value in society. That's what budgeting is. It's not just numbers. there are people behind all these numbers. And I know that we have an acute crisis when it comes to human services and the workforce, and we've got to figure out a way as a state to address that, because I don't want people leaving, and I know they're leaving to go work at Amazon and Target and elsewhere. Leave work that is both a vocation and an avocation. They love this work. They want to stay with their clients, but they also have to be able to buy groceries, and pay rent. And so we've got to figure that out as a state.
Cindy, thank you very much for your call. We really appreciate it. Where do you want to go, Marjorie? Do you want to go back to the? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
We got Ryan from Woburn.
Oh, sorry. Hi, Ryan.
Hi, thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
Governor, thank you.
Hi, Ryan.
I just wanted to ask you, thank you. I just wanted to ask you what can be done and what you might be able to do to help educators, teachers, professionals, paraprofessionals, and others to not only have a living but a respectable wage in Massachusetts. Right now, the Woburn teachers are on strike. I was kind of shocked to learn that that's illegal in Massachusetts. I don't know how that can be, but it is, and I wondered, what could be done at the state and local levels to remove impediments in negotiations and really, get behind and support these teachers. My father was a math teacher. My mother worked with special needs children in the schools, and I know what goodness there is in these people, and it's the discrepancy in what they should get paid and what they do get paid should weigh on the conscience of our society like a ton of bricks.
Ryan, thank you for the call.
Thanks, Ryan. And this goes back to an earlier part of our conversation. I thought you were calling from Woburn to tell me that the strike had been resolved, because that has been my fervent hope. I want to see kids back in school. I want to support our kids. I want to support our families. I want to support our educators. And these are challenging times. So let's work through this. When it comes to educators, I think that obviously pay, benefits, that's really important. I think that number two is also recognizing the mental health issues when it comes to not only students and our young people, but also educators. Number three, what are we doing when it comes to additional personnel within the workforce, teachers as well as other educators, our paraprofessionals who have a starting salary of $22,000 a year. It's pretty hard to make a go of it at $22,000 a year. I get it. So, the good news is we have money now that will be coming in to the state, and hopefully we can be using that. We're going to be using that exclusively by just the fair share amendment. We're going to be using that revenue exclusively for education and transportation. With respect to education, hopefully there are investments that we can make in schools to support the work that educators are doing. But I'm mindful of people leaving, of people seeking other careers, of people retiring earlier. We need to keep educators in place. We also need to diversify our workforce around the state. So, Ryan, my mom was a school nurse and a teacher. My stepdad was a teacher, and I really appreciate the important role they have to play in the health and well-being and direction of the lives of our kids around the state. And with respect to what's happening in Woburn, I just really hope that people stay at the table and can figure out a way to get this one done.
Ryan, thank you for the call. We appreciate it.
Governor Healy, we talked a lot about transparency when you were the Attorney General. We talked about that a lot during your campaign. All the other previous governors of Massachusetts, Paul Cellucci, Mitt Romney, Charlie Baker, on election day, we knew all about them. We knew where they lived. We knew their families. We even had those sit-downs with at home with Governor so-and-so. That was different with you. We didn't find out till after the election about your life or about even where you lived. A lot of people thought it was Boston, turns out it was Cambridge. Was there a double standard? And if there was, why do you think that was?
I think a lot of people knew about my life, where I came from, where I grew up, my family, my brothers and sisters, my parents. They've been on the show actually in the past, and so I was happy to share more about my personal life, and I'm proud of it, and I'm grateful to all in my life, family and friends who support me in this work, and we'll. I'm sure have more conversations
going forward. Was it our fault in the media that we didn't ask? We didn't get the sit down at home with Maura Healey. Was that our making a mistake, or was that it just happened that way?
I don't know. I'm not aware of earlier requests. I've certainly tried to meet with media throughout my time as Attorney General as often as possible. But I look forward to more discussions and, more interviews as people come to know me. I think, moving into this role, it's a little different. It's a little different being the Attorney General, where, with ramifications, legal ramifications for lives and well-beings when one speaks as Attorney General, there's a particular approach, and I think people are expecting to hear from you in that capacity as an Attorney General. When you're governor, it's obviously a different role, and you're going to be speaking about a lot more things. There are obviously big ramifications to your words, but it's a different kind of role, I think, that people see. And so I hope to have a lot of opportunities for more people. As many people who might have known me as Attorney General, I learned running for this seat. There are a whole bunch of people around this great state of 7 million people who don't know all that much about me, and I look forward to sharing more about me and how I think, who I am, how I approach things as we go forward.
Speaking of transparency, you and I, when you were here in December, I asked you the following. I said, will you confirm that you will not claim exemption from public record laws as governor? And you said, one word answer, yes. By the way, for context, we're the only state in America where the legislature, judiciary, and the governor's office all claim exemptions. You said yes without any qualification. On your website, you say that you affirm what your predecessors as governor said, that there's a Lambert decision from the state's highest court saying the governor's office is exempt. However, you go on to write, or your office goes on to write, will respond to public record requests on a case-by-case basis. Governor Healy intends to follow the public records law and provide more transparency to the governor's office than ever before. Requests will be evaluated on a public records law and any unique obligations of the governor's office. How is that different from your predecessors? They also believe the law exempted them. You seem to be saying to me and to others, you think there shouldn't be exemptions except, I guess, prior policy decisions and personnel things. How is that statement on your website different from Baker and all before?
I think what's different, or what you'll see is different, is that when it comes to the actual implementation, you'll see some differences. I mean, as Attorney General, I was accustomed to complying with the public records law, and I said that I would continue that as governor, even though legally I'm not required to, and until and unless there's a legislative change. And so that's why, it's matter by matter, request by request, because there may be certain instances as a matter of security or personnel issues. You mentioned a deliberative, policy making. There may be certain instances where there are certain things that cannot be provided to the public, but I have assured and will continue to assure that I will be a governor who is going to be the most transparent that we've seen when it comes to the production of information. It's why, Marjorie, with respect to you asking questions about the T, I'm not going to hide the ball on things, because for better or worse, the public needs to know. So that was that's where my position remains the same.
So your default position is to release information, and the exception, I'm putting words in your mouth, but I want to make, the exception would be to claim exemptions in fewer cases. So you said,
That's right.
I think you said to the Globe the other day, you weren't going to file legislation that would remove the exemption of the legislature. If they do it, you'd support it. Would you file legislation to exempt your office from?
I don't think I need to file legislation. I think that I can just implement as along the lines that I've articulated, and that's what I'm going to do.
Let's go to Aria in East Bridgewater. You're on with Maura Healey. She's the new governor of the Commonwealth. Hi, Aria.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
I also have a question related to the education system. I have a friend. She works a very busy full-time job as an educator in a high school. She has 3 young children. And I know, Governor, that you're very concerned about child care services and implementing them. I'm wondering if there are any, policies that are already instated or plans to provide financial restitution of any sort for educators for child care purposes?
Well, Aria, thanks for your question. And you say you're in East Bridgewater?
I am, yeah.
Were you affected by that burn break the other day, the dam, the flooding?
I heard about it, but it didn't affect me personally. My son, the school he was in, was not
Well,
impacted.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
The question you raise, it's really important. Just today, people may have seen that Middlesex, Norfolk County here in Massachusetts, we have among the highest, top 20 maybe, childcare rates in the country. I think all of our counties are inside the top 100 in the country. Childcare, disproportionately higher childcare costs here in the state. So obviously we need to do something. And we need to look at that. I've actually tasked my Secretary of Education to look at that and to evaluate and come to me with a proposal about what we can do around reducing the cost of childcare. I know it's been the subject of much discussion within the legislature, and collectively we've got to continue those conversations and work to provide relief to people out there who are dealing with really high costs of childcare. We also need, and part of that is we need more childcare workers. Through COVID, we saw the closure of so many childcare centers. We've seen more people leaving the field for other positions, including those, as I mentioned earlier, at Amazon and Target and like. We need to figure out a way to bring and to grow a workforce of childcare workers. And also we need some money and support for modernization of some of our childcare centers as well.
Let's go to the mic in the studio. Janet, you've been very patient, and you're there with the Governor of the Commonwealth, Maura Healey. Hi.
Hi. We know that you're very concerned about the environment, and I came here with a group of people, and we also represent over 4,000 other people who've signed a petition of concern about a devastating environmental destruction that's going to occur very soon on the North Shore that affects 12 different communities. It's going to be the Northeast Metro Tech new vocational school. There was a late in the game change of decision about the location of the school, and now they want to put it on a forested hilltop that will involve blasting the hill, destroying 13 acres of old-growth trees. There are endangered species there, and Native American artifacts have just been found. And we'd just like to find out if there's any way your office could investigate why this change was made, and if there could be a stay, because there's a perfectly viable alternative that was presented years ago in a study they did on the football field that has the same size and could accommodate the same number of students. There's also a lot of safety issues, disability issues with the new design because it's going to be on a cliff. And it's going to happen really soon. That as early as March, they could destroy the trees. And we would just like somebody to look into it because there are many other issues connected to it that are really bad. And we would just like someone to talk to who could maybe do something about it. We've been trying to reach... I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. Let's just hear what the governor has to say about this,
okay.
Janet. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Janet, for raising the issue, and for those who joined you today in coming here. I'll make sure that as we leave, we get a contact for you and your contact so that my team can reach out. I don't know specifically about that project or that site, so I need to learn more. I will say that, when it comes to siting generally, I have said that I believe we need to be attentive to our environmental justice needs out there, and always look to mitigate against potential harms and reduce disparities. So that's been my general position on these things. But again, I don't know the specifics of this project, but we look forward to learning more from you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Janet. Who'd you first meet with as Governor of the Commonwealth, Maura Healey?
About, 200 moms and mom allies and young kids, mothers out front. They were the first group to come to my office. I was really, really proud of that. I was happy to get any visitors at the State House. I was lonely there the first 10 days or so, but it was great. They came and...
Can you explain who they are? I assume most people know, but just...
Terrific advocacy organization, super grassroots, started not too long ago, but has just grown exponentially. Chapters across communities around this state, and they're really a wonderful environmental advocacy organization. As Attorney General, I worked closely with them on addressing issues of gas leaks, for example, methane getting out into the atmosphere and causing all sorts of harm, and they continue to be strong advocates. I've said we are committed to working with them and with other stakeholders in achieving our climate goals and reducing greenhouse gas emissions, in thinking about what we need to be doing around sustainability and resilience. I've also called for, when it comes to siting decisions, when you think about the physical stuff, the plant, the stations, different things that are going to go into different places, particularly as we need to move away from fossil fuels. There's certain infrastructure that we're going to have to build out. There's also the existing environmental injustices, and one of the things I've called for is that on our Energy Siting Facilities Board, which is the group that makes decisions about where certain things are going to go, that there be an environmental justice advocate, because the siting of these things is so important to me. And so I was thrilled they presented me with bouquets of hands with messages signed, cut out hands with messages signed from young people around the Commonwealth, basically exhorting me as a leader and other leaders to do all that we can when it comes to a cleaner, healthier future.
Maura Healey, we really
Yeah,
appreciate
thank
you being here.
very much
We
for
look
coming.
forward to a lot of these
Thanks
in
for
the
having
future.
me. Great to see
And
everybody.
We really appreciate
all right,
your time.
let's work together.
Like I
Thank
said,
you.
brought a big crowd to the Boston Public Library, so we're very grateful for
Well,
that,
there's
too.
a lot of expectation for a lot of things that need doing, and the team and I are committed to doing just that. So we look forward to being back again.
Thank you very
again,
much
Maura
for
Healey.
being with us.